I hope you can hear me clearly. I want to see if I can close this. Hi, everybody. My name is Solomon Rotimi. Welcome to today's session for product discovery. I I added a caveat that it is not a masterclass. Anyways, I am a product designer. I am focused here on discovery, and tonight I want to talk about why questioning requirements matters. I would like to share my thought process with you guys. And at the end of the day, I would like to leave you thinking about discovery and how you can probably apply it in whatever situation you find yourself. Welcome. One thing I would like to call out before we proceed fully is the fact that not only designers are here. I believe we have product managers, we have developers, which makes it more interesting. A lot of people might be asking or wondering, why is a product discovery session involving more than just designers? Just think about this way. This is about people who are involved in product building. I think that's just like a very simple way to talk about it. So 13 months ago, and I'm very careful about using 13 months instead of saying 1 year. I think 13 months sound a bit more polished, or it sounds a bit more long. Let me put it that way. So 13 months ago, I was privileged to travel and learn about how to bring value to your team. I was able to learn about saying no, how to win influence. And in the course of the entire workshop, my thinking process changed. The way I approached building, the way I approached designing changed, because I started shifting from just creating solutions at random to thinking about the kind of value I am adding to the team, to the business, and to the users as a whole. That was an interesting point in my life as a designer. I will say again, 13 months ago, the kind of designer I was more focused on clearing my backlog. Let me put it that way. That was the major thing on my head. When it comes to accomplishments in my team, then I would say I cleared the highest amount of backlog, the design backlog we had. I cleared the most out of it. Did that make me more valuable? No. In fact, the people that cleared the least backlog added more value to the business and to our team. Not because they were working on, or not because what I was working on was not important, but because the way they were approaching design thinking, the way they were approaching making sure that they're adding value to the team and to the users was much more detailed than how I was approaching it. After the workshop I attended, my approach changed dramatically. I learned some things, and that is why I want to share what some of the things I learned in this discovery call. So before we start designing, and I'm using design here loosely because design, well, a lot of designers will relate to designing. But when I'm talking about designing, to a good extent, I mean building, designing solutions, and participating in the entire process of giving users value. So before we start designing, the question is, how do we know that we are solving the right problem? What usually happens when you receive that feature request? So I will like us to take, I don't know, 1 minute, 2 minutes to scan this QR code, and then please tell me it is here. What I'm looking for should be, is this the right place? Let me see if I can come back. Yes. So just scan the QR code or go to menti.com and enter this code here. Yeah, so just type in your answers. What usually happens after a new feature request reaches you? What is the first approach you do basically? There is no right or wrong answer. Just let us know what you do. Don't worry, your name is not going to show. So I just want to gauge where our thinking is at the moment. All right, some answers are popping in research. That's nice. Yeah, what usually happens after a new feature request has reached you? What's that first instinct that comes to your mind? So imagine I give you a task to do today. What do you try to do? Research, ideate, nice. Let's keep it coming. Gauge importance. That's nice. Research on the feature. Okay. Find a solution. That's nice. Nice responses. Check for changes. Understand why. Research user needs. Research and validation. Very interesting answers here. Let's keep it coming. Maybe the next 30 seconds we will proceed out of here. How does it help? I like that answer. Check what users are saying. Interesting. Ask questions. Wonderful. Let me go back to my slide. So we have gotten a lot of interesting responses. I saw a lot of researching, ideating, finding solutions, asking why, trying to understand the user needs. These are all very good answers. Like I said, there is no one right answer to the question. Well, there is a wrong answer, but there is a wrong answer. But at the end of the day, I would say there is no particular one size fits all solution. So, once again, I'm going to ask a rhetorical question. What happens before design begin? A lot of times, product teams, they invest very, very heavily on interface. They invest a lot on crafts. They try to do thinking about the design solutions. But then the question I asked in the previous slide, how do we know we are solving the right problem? That's this guy here. How do we know we're solving the right problem? It's one of the key questions that we need to ask before we start anything designs. The issue is that many product mistakes come as a result of packaged design requests or packaged product requirements. When that product requirements comes, our head starts thinking about how do we start providing solution. Some people answered the research, but then what does research mean? Some answered they are going to ask users question. What question do you want to ask your users? How do you know the kind of question to ask users? So once again, how do we know we are solving the right problem? Right? This is how we are probably going to get started. I'm going to paint a scenario here. Customers are asking for a particular feature. A lot of people are very, very interested in this feature. They have reached out to the customer success team. They have submitted a lot of ticket requests. Your sales team are probably talking to prospects, maybe new clients they want to onboard in your on your platform or your company. The leadership team, they believe this feature is going to be important. You guys have checked, competitors have these features that they are requesting for. On one side, you think about moving quickly. Maybe they say, in the next 2 weeks, let us build this feature. This takes me back to a post I saw on X. We all know Leye on X, I think. He posted a while ago about a company, I think it's a fintech company, trying to integrate AI into their platform. And what did they do? They integrated a chatbot into a fintech application. I was asking myself, why do they want a chatbot on a fintech platform? I don't know if that question makes sense, but why do they want a chatbot on a fintech platform? And I was thinking about it. Could it be that there was pressure from the leadership team? That could be the case. If there is pressure from leadership team to say, let us have AI included in our platform, then there is a very good chance that there will be pressure to add artificial intelligence on their platform. Let me just check. Are you guys with me? Just so we are following. All right. If there is this pressure from leadership team to include artificial intelligence, there is little the team can do to push back if they don't question the requirements strongly. When there is urgency, a lot of teams move quickly and they jump the process of discovery and they start moving to solution. They start thinking about design questions rather than problem questions. By design question, I mean, where will this feature be? You get, where are we going to put this feature? Maybe what kind of layout are we going to use? What kind of colors are we going to use? They start thinking in a solution-driven way, whereas they have not figured out the right question. And there is one big question that we need to ask before we go into design mode. What problem are we actually trying to solve? Again, I'll repeat the question. What problem are we actually trying to solve? The fact that people are asking for AI within the platform doesn't mean we are going to throw AI anywhere on the platform. We need to ask, what problem are we trying to solve? Simple. The issue now is that a request may be partly right, it may be it may be partly wrong, it may be completely right. But how do you know the stage this request is in? You have to try and find out the evidence that backs up the problem they are trying to solve. I will give you an example. There was a time when I was involved in a product discovery. The PM came, very enthusiastic. We need to build an AI executive summary for our products. Why? Because a lot of our legal clients who use our platform to go through contracts are tired of going through the thousands of contracts they have. So they need an AI executive summary that will summarize each of the contracts and give them quick overview about what the contract is. Potentially, that way they can speed up how fast they review a contract and then move on. It sounds right. Not right, I don't think right is the right word. It sounds fair like the request sounds fair. Too many contracts. We need AI summary to reduce the time they spend on the contracts. Fair. Is that the problem we're actually trying to solve? At the end of the day, no, that was not the problem we're trying to solve. We started digging deep, we started asking critical questions. Who is asking for this? Why do they want it? We started hearing a lot of things like we lost some prospective clients because we did not have AI executive summary. Our competitors have AI on their own platform that help users in this kind of case. We started digging deep, trying to find out the real problem. And at the end of the day, after speaking with some of our top clients, we found out that they don't want an AI executive summary. They just wanted a way to know that they are not wasting time on the wrong contracts. They can have numerous contracts, but some are more important than some. They want to know what to focus their time on, and they want to focus their time on what has the most evidence that they can work with. The problem is that the evidence does not live on our own system, so we cannot use AI to create the right kind of summary. So if you notice, the solution is when it comes to solution thinking now, it's not about what can AI do. It's about how can we help our customers to have enough context to know that this contract is worth paying attention to. That solves the right problem. That's the shift I want us to start thinking about. Discovery is not about rejection. Sometimes it might look like you are pushing back and rejecting a product requirement, whereas you are just trying to understand that you are trying to commit to something that is worth it. I don't know if that makes sense. Please, some reaction if what I've been saying makes sense. Thank you. Okay, some more people have joined. Welcome. Let's proceed. So I'm going to use an example here. Let's assume that we have this request on our screen. Let's assume we have this request here. A live courier tracking map. It sounds reasonable. What is the reason? People are asking, where is my delivery? Your PM come and meet you and say, PM's in the call here. Imagine you go and meet your teammates and tell them, or your colleague, your designers, we need a live courier tracking map because users are asking where their delivery is. Just think about it. Where is my delivery? A reasonable solution can be to have a live courier tracking map. Yes, it is reasonable. But again, the question that we have been asking all this while, where is that question again? What problem are we actually trying to solve? Do users want a live courier tracking map? We know that they're asking about where is their delivery. But what evidence do we have to support the fact that live courier tracking map is the solution? What if it's just that users cannot plan their day correctly? And they can't plan their day correctly because they don't know where their delivery is. What if they are trying to think about if they should remain at home for maybe 2 hours to collect their delivery? What if they can't track their delivery because there is a glitch in the system? Maybe one backend developer forgot to push something that will enable real-time status updates. What if? And then you just jump to say, build a live courier tracking map. I don't know if the thing is making sense. Imagine you build the life career tracking map. You spend 1 month building it, and then 1 week later, users are excited. We have a career tracking map. The next week, you start seeing requests again. Where is my delivery? How will you feel? You get, how will you feel? You solved the wrong problem. You provided a very sweet solution to the wrong problem. This all, this, everything we're talking about leads to this phase here. Question any requirements that comes to your desk. Now, just for some disclaimer, so that we're not going to screenshot this and then use this exactly. This is not a checklist of questions you should ask. This is not a North Star of the kind of questions you should ask. This is just some possible questions that could be asked depending on the situation you find yourself. Questions like, who requested this? When you ask this question, it is not a way to prove your stakeholder wrong. Because I know there are some stakeholders. If you have founders on this call, please be patient with your. If you have founders on this call, please be patient with your team members when they ask you who is requesting for this feature. The goal is not to prove you wrong. The goal is to try and uncover the real problem behind the request. We need to, as much as possible, separate what we know, what we believe, what is assumed, what is observed. We need to be able to separate all these things in our head. We need to ask questions. Who is experiencing all these problems? What are they trying to accomplish? Do we have evidence to support the request that is coming in? Do we have any baseless assumption we are making? And then I like this particular question. That's number 6. What happens if we do absolutely nothing? If we don't build the request that is coming in, what will happen? You might figure out that at the end of the day, you are not going to lose users. You are just probably going to inconvenience maybe 2% or 1% of your users that are requesting for it. That's what happens when you question requirements. You will start to learn a lot of things. And the crazy thing is that the answer to all these questions that you might have do not lie in just one person. You need to talk to the product people, your lead, to try and figure out what support people have received. You need to know how the current flow is from the engineering team. You need to get analytics. You need to probably get post-hoc recordings to see where people are having issues. You need to ask questions from a lot of people and get different answers. Your product team is very diverse. One of the reasons why I wanted both engineers to be on this call, PMs, founders, designers to be on this call is because discovery process is not just about one person. Everybody needs to be involved in this process to get a more fruitful result. A lot of people need to be involved in this process, and because there are different roles involved, we are going to get different quality answers. Imagine you are having a lot of requests from your users and you go and meet your PM to ask for what are users saying. The PM may not get as much quality in answer than the person in the customer success team that is receiving those requests constantly. If you ask the customer success representative. They hear what users are saying. They can help you and understand if this request is valid, if this is what they are asking. Another example with the last the product discovery stuff I was talking about, where I was asked to investigate building an AI executive summary. The customer success representative said something. Only, let's say, 1 to 2 users categorically asked for AI executive summary. The rest were just saying they don't like the fact that they are spending a lot of time looking at contracts that are not high priority. But the issue is that when you collect all those requests, somebody can just make an assumption that AI executive summary is what is important. I don't know if it makes sense. So there is no single perspective that is louder than the other. Each person brings a lot of insights that inform the next set of questions and the next set of answers that you are looking for. And that is the beauty of being in a team that can help you uncover these kind of things. So when you bring these pieces together, it also means that your judgments can be more clearer. So moving forward, we need to be very careful and we need to be very comfortable with dividing the things that are coming to our head. We need to be sure of what we know. We need to be sure about things that are just thoughts, assumptions. We need to also know the things we need to learn, things we need to investigate. So, for example, if we are going to use the career tracking stuff, maybe users keep refreshing their app to see where if their status has been updated. You might know this based on observation. You might know that 2 prospects have mentioned that they want tracking. Maybe the vendors are saying our users are complaining, add tracking feature so that it can help them before I join your platform, something like that. So in your head, you might be thinking customers expect this. Now, the problem is if you carry your thinking that customers expect this and turn that to an evidence and build it, you could be wrong. I am using could because, like I said, some requirements are partly right, some are totally wrong, some are partly wrong, some are totally right. So try to find evidence to what is just a random thought on your head. Competitors already have it. This might just be something moving in the markets, a reaction to the market's movements, and not evidence to the request you are getting. So you need to know what you should learn. Why are our vendors getting increasing status requests? What are our buyers' expectation? You need to figure out what are the answers to these questions, and you do this by questioning those requirements, asking questions like who requested it, who is experiencing this, what are they trying to accomplish. Stuff like that will lead you closer to the answers. We are going to go back to the Mentimeter and answer some questions. So this request, the live career tracking map, just let's assume you get this request. And the reason is that people cannot know where their delivery is. What kind of questions will you ask in that situation? So let us go back to, where is it? Let us go back to the Mentimeter and then answer these questions again. So we're going to spend maybe 1-2 minutes and just get some responses. So for the live career map request, what would you like to know? Just put in your answers. What would you like to know? In case you are just joining, you can scan this QR code or go to menti.com and put in this code here. Then answer this question. For the life career tracking map, what would you like to know? Okay. What are you sending? Interesting. Keep the responses coming. How many users requested for it? Nice. Is there a map feature? That's an interesting question because I have experienced a situation where we already had a solution to the problem, but users were not just aware of it. So is there a map feature? That's a good question. What is the user's address? Okay, that's an interesting question too. But I wonder if knowing where users address is will help us to solve it. What does a new feature solve? Yeah. What does it solve? What does the life career map solve? There could be an assumption that it is going to help them know where their delivery is, but that is just an assumption. It is not evidence. Okay, is it a map or a timer? Good. So we'll just take a couple of more responses. These are all interesting questions to ask. And one thing I would also like to point out is that when trying to find your questions, be careful not to provide solutions. If you are thinking about a solution, try to reframe it as a question rather than providing a solution. Is there a way to talk? That is a very interesting question. Can we probably have a place to chat and maybe ask questions to the vendor to ask where their delivery is? That's a good question to ask. Do every user need this? Very interesting question. And that could reveal what kind of the users are asking for this question. How fast will I get my package? Nice. All right, so I guess these are all interesting questions. So let's go back to our. No, this is the wrong place. Wrong place again. Yes, this is the right place. Let us go back to our slide. So what would you need to know? Different interesting questions can come up. Where does this delivery status request comes from? Which of our vendors are reporting this the most? Which of our vendors provide the most money to the platform, and do they experience this problem? That's another interesting question to ask, because maybe you just want to see if a new vendor that have maybe 1% of your total sales is reporting this complaint. In that case now, if a vendor that is bringing 1% of your sales is reporting this request the most, you might push the request aside because it's not that important. It's not bringing you enough money. So why should you focus on solving a problem that is not contributing to the bulk of your revenue? This is why you ask questions. So you know if a problem is worth solving, and you know if a problem, or you know what problem you're actually trying to solve. My slide is not moving. Okay. So, like I said, when you're asking all these questions, the need may just be uncertainty. What if that delivery? What if the issue is that the recipient are struggling to plan around the delivery because arrival information may change, and it's changing rapidly. It's changing without giving users enough useful explanation, and they cannot plan their day. What if this is the actual reason why they're asking for the request? This is going to open your mind to a different kind of solution. It will make you to think differently about the solution. So, discovery as a whole is not meant to create perfect certainty. You need to just have enough evidence that occurs multiple times. You have collected evidence that are converging together. That will give you enough clarity, not perfect certainty, enough clarity that you can start moving on. You need to look at the original request. Who is experiencing it? Why does it matter? You need to collect evidence. What do we have? What do we know? What are we assuming? What remains uncertain? What are users saying? Who does this matter to the most? Does it matter to the business? When you are done collecting all the evidence, you are going to converge at a particular point that can lead you to reframe the product statements. So the first requirements that your PM or your stakeholder give to you, i.e., we need a live courier tracking map because users are asking where is their delivery. The problem statements might be reframed to users cannot plan their day correctly because their status updates at the wrong time, or their status updates and does not provide enough useful information for them so that they can plan their day correctly. This is how problems can be reframed differently. Or the first example I gave, PM brought creates an AI executive summary because we need to help users understand the documents quickly. And then it changed to users need enough context so that they know which document is high priority and they can focus on the right document that needs the most attention. Problem reframed because you asked a lot of questions. When you reframe the problem, your head can start thinking about the right solutions. And the solutions may not even be as expensive as the initial requirements. That's the funny thing. So what happens next after you have reframed your problem? What happens next? So before I look at what happens next, I just want to check if we are still following and if everything is making sense so far. All right, nice reactions. Thank you for sharing. What happens next after you have reframed your problem? Like I said, a properly reframed problem will open your mind to thinking about more proper solutions. You begin to examine the possibilities of what to solve. I would like to create another separate masterclass-ish to talk about what to do after you have gotten the right problem statements, because that is another different conversation, which is one of the most interesting aspects that I usually like, because you are brainstorming about solutions and you're trying to tie it down to a lot of things: business value, user value, engineering capabilities. Can we build this? Does it matter to the business? Does it matter to the users also? So when you have reframed your problem statement correctly, you can start thinking about a lot of solutions and then move to the next phase of the discovery process. Sorry, somebody's mic is on. Okay, yeah, that's it. So when I plan the next meeting, I'm going to talk in depth about it. Today, I wanted to just focus on questioning the requirements as the first step in product discovery. Now, let us have some reality check before we go too far. The truth is that you may not be working in the ideal scenario where practicing this will be profitable. I'm going to give you an example. The last team I worked in, where the entire company was forward thinking for product discovery. Before we understood the importance of product discovery, we were jumping into solution mode, or only the PM will try to find the right questions to ask and reframe the problem. But they don't do this as well as needed because our major focus was to clear backlogs. We had a lot of things in our backlog to clear, and we were just sharing it. Designer A take design, designer B take design, engineer A implements, engineer B implements. When we shifted to a company-wide discovery first framework, it was easier for us to reframe vague problem statements and bring proper solutions to those problems. So there are cases where you can be in a great team like this. There are cases where you might be in a good team that is open-minded to the fact that the designer, the engineer on the team, the PM on the team wants to question the requirements, and they can maybe dedicate 15 minutes to answer some questions for you. There is a case where you might be in a bad team that is rushing you to just go into solution mode. And the only thing you can do probably is just to check on Google who are the competitors for our company, check mobbing, find out how they are solving this problem, maybe ask one or two questions rapidly, why are we trying to do this, and you can get a very shabby answer, then just go into solution mode. You might be in this kind of situation. I've been in that kind of situation, and I believe a lot of us might be in that kind of situation too. That should not stop you from trying to find out as much as possible what evidence can back up the claim for the problem you are trying to solve. And you should at least try and mention it to your team that the solution you are providing, you are not exactly sure there is evidence that this is the right solution. And after designing the solution, you guys should test early enough to be sure that you are solving the right problem. If not, you delete it and try to rethink about it again. And one important way of doing this, we are going to touch on this next call properly. One way of doing this is by creating experiments, very quick experiments that is not very time consuming. Use it to test your ideas early enough. So this is a reality check. Many of us might not be in that ideal situation. I wanted to do another Mentimeter, but before we go there, sorry. Knowing about product discovery is the easiest part of the entire thing. This is the easiest part. The difficult part is practicing it. One of the struggle I have, which I still currently have, is knowing how to ask the right questions. The fact that I am speaking to you guys today about it does not automatically mean I know how to ask the right questions. To a very good extent, why the whole process has been a bit helpful or easier is because I am going to work with a product manager, an engineer, customer success, sales team. We are involved in this whole process, and we can send questions back and forth, which helps in the questioning process. But you also need to start training your mind to think about what answers am I looking for, what question is not clear enough that I need to figure out. You need to start asking those right questions, and you need to start training your mind to go into questioning mode. So the practice is a bit messy. You're not going to always get complete data. You are not going to meet people that are always going to be willing to give you the right answers. You'll get a lot of pushbacks, which is why I decided to also introduce a product discovery practice workshop. I did the pilot workshop last week. I got some few friends to join the call, and we were able to practice this discovery workshop. It was very interesting. We used a very strong way of doing this to make it realistic. We had a complete team. We had teammates, we had sales team, we had engineering leads, we had C-suites folks, we had VPs. We're able to bounce questions back and forth and experience how discovery might be in a real working situation. So if you are interested, you can go to this link here. I pray it's still working. But you can visit this link and just join the interest list. When I'm done planning the entire discovery stuff, I should be able to reach out randomly and invite you guys to join the discovery workshop. And by God's grace, when this whole process have scaled largely, we can have a very large workshop to contain many people, then have breakout sessions. But for now, I'm doing this alone and I don't know how to manage a breakout session. So I am only able to manage like 6 people to be in the workshop that we can just discuss together. So if you're interested, go through the link, just drop your interest, and I'm going to review it later on. Let me copy. Can I copy it from here? Let me paste the link on the chat. Where is the chat? The session feedback before we round up. We're almost done. I just want to get your feedback so far. How valuable was this session in improving your thinking approach towards product discovery? How confident do you feel about questioning at least one new product requirement after this session? I believe if we are going back to our teams, we should be able to at least question one requirement, even though it's just a single question you are going to ask. Just answer a single question. Just ask a single question. Push back a little bit. And I believe to some extent why it is difficult to push back, at least for me, it's because of how I have grown up. I believe many people might also experience this notion of don't question elderly people, don't question people that are in authority, because it might sound as if it's rude. I think that's the mindset I have operated in for a while. It sucks, but I think that has caused a lot of issues when it comes to questioning these requirements. But if you can start practicing this, it gets better over time. So please leave your feedback. If you are still here and you can't access Mentimeter, you can scan the QR code and put this code if you are going through menti.com. So your feedback are highly welcome. Keep them coming, and then I'm just going to wrap up. Keep your feedback coming. Anyways, just to wrap up, at the end of the day, what we are talking about is before you start building solutions, please try and ask, what are we trying to solve? This is very important because speed is an advantage, but if you are speeding in the wrong direction, a disaster is waiting to happen. Speed in the wrong direction leads to disaster. So it's not just about going fast, it's about going fast, right? Discovery is not about slowing your team down. Discovery is about ensuring that you're not focusing your energy, your resources, your money, your time on the wrong problem. A lot of people build clever solutions to the wrong problem, and that is what affects a lot of teams. So, thank you very much. The requests are still coming in, the feedback are still coming in. So, thank you very much for joining. I'm just going to take few questions and then we are going to wrap up. I think I'll just take any questions we have for the next 2-3 minutes and then we're going to call it a day. So if you want to ask question with the mic, you can take the mic. If you want to ask question via what again? The messages. Please do the same. All right, I believe we don't have questions, right? That will be my assumption. I don't have evidence. I don't have evidence to support my assumption, but that's what I'm going to assume. The evidence will be if somebody says something otherwise, but there's no evidence. I'm just assuming. And based on the feedback, I will assume again. Okay, John Otaro, please ask your question. I don't know if raising hand is the evidence, but you can ask your question. Any question is valid. If I don't have answer, I'll ask ChatGPT.
Hello everyone. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is John. So, my question is not really a question. I just wanted to add to what you said. I know when you asked about the live Google Map option for courier services, where you now asked what questions should be asked about the feature. So you said, so I used the Mentee app and I gave a response of user address, but you said that you don't really know how user address is going to help the question that they asked.
Yes.
So I was not really able to express myself more on the Mentee app. So I just want to say that the reason why I said user address is because when we are getting requests, especially delivery requests,
I don't know who my contract.
at a particular location.
I don't know who that contract.
At a particular location, at a particular location, you need to collect data about that location to know, okay, I'm getting more delivery access or more delivery requests from this particular location.
Mm-hmm.
So with that data now, what you can do with it is knowing how you prioritize that area or that location of where you are getting more users what you call delivery requests
Yes.
from there. So from there you can keep on getting more data, knowing how many deliveries that you guys are getting in a day from that location, knowing how you're going to prioritize that location in any of your delivery requests, knowing how you're going to serve users in that location,
Mm-hmm.
all those kind of things. That's what I mean about users address, basically. Okay.
That is a very, very interesting question to ask.